A super BFG there. I like his ears. Okay, I think he's great. Right, now, yesterday we started, we're almost to the end of chapter 2, and Danny's dad was about to tell him when he did see the BFG. I'll set the clock running. Have you ever actually seen the big friendly giant? Once, my father said. Only once. You did? Where? I was out behind the caravan, my father said. And it was a clear moonlit night, and I happened to look up, and suddenly I saw this tremendous tall person running along the crest of the hill. He had a queer, long, striding, lolloping gait, and his black cloak was streaming out behind him like the wings of a bird. There was a big suitcase in one hand and a blowpipe in the other, and when he came to the high hawthorn hedge at the end of the field, he just strode over it as though it wasn't there. Weren't you frightened, Dad? No, my father said. It was thrilling to see him, and a little eerie, but I wasn't frightened. Go to sleep now. Good night. So that's when he saw the BFG. Now let's move on to chapter 3. Cars and kites and fire balloons. My father was a fine mechanic. People who lived miles away used to bring their cars to him for repair rather than take them to their nearest garage. He loved engines. A petrol engine is sheer magic, he said to me once. Just imagine being able to take 1,000 different bits of metal, and if you fit them all together in a certain way, and then if you feed them a little oil and petrol, and if you press a little switch, suddenly those bits of metal will all come to life, and they will purr and hum and roar. They will make the wheels of a motor car go whizzing round at fantastic speeds. It was inevitable that I, too, should fall in love with engines and cars. Don't forget that even before I could walk, the workshop had been my playroom, for where else could my father have put me so that he could keep an eye on me all day long? My toys were the greasy cogs and springs and pistons that lay around all over the place. And these, I can promise you, were far more fun to play with than most of the plastic stuff children are given these days. So almost from birth, I began training to be a mechanic. But now that I was 5 years old, there was the problem of school to think about. It was the law that parents must send their children to school at the age of 5, and my father knew about this. We were in the workshop, I remember. On my 5th birthday, when the talk about school started. I was helping my father to fit new brake liners to the rear wheel of a big Ford, when suddenly he said to me, "You know something interesting, Danny? You must be easily the best 5-year-old mechanic in the world." This was the greatest compliment he had ever paid me. I was enormously pleased. "You like this work, don't you?" he said. "All this messing about with engines?" "I absolutely love it," he said. He turned and faced and laid a hand gently on my shoulder. "I want to teach you to be a great mechanic," he said. "And when you grow up, I hope you will become a famous designing engineer, a man who designs new and better engines for cars and aeroplanes. For that," he added, "you will need a really good education. But I don't want to send you to school quite yet. In another 2 years, you'll have learned enough here with me to be able to take a small engine completely to pieces and put it together again all by yourself. After that, you can go to school." Imagine that, kids. Imagine that. You're 5 years old, you're meant to go to school, but your dad says, "No, you don't have to. You can stay at home and just make engines and fix engines with me until you're 7. And that's what me and Charlie are going to do tomorrow. We found this in a whole box of things that in a cupboard that hadn't been opened. Maybe it's an old Christmas present. We're going to make this tomorrow. It's a saltwater engine car. It runs on salt water. Maybe we'll make a video and let you know how it goes. but that's going to be a cool thing to do. I'm quite looking forward to that, actually. So imagine you didn't go to school when you were in reception. Imagine what Miss Ward would say. She'd go mad. And you wouldn't go to school until you'd be in either Mrs. Hodges or Mrs. Bretherton's class. Imagine that. Miss Ward would not be pleased. You probably think my father was crazy trying to teach a young child to be an expert mechanic. But as a matter of fact, he wasn't crazy at all. I learned fast and I adored every moment of it. And luckily for us, nobody came knocking on the door to ask why I wasn't attending school. It wouldn't be the same now, children, so don't get any ideas. So 2 more years went by, and at the age of 7, believe it or not, I really could take a small engine to pieces and put it together again. I mean properly to pieces, pistons and crankshaft and all. The time had come to start school. Ooh. My school was in the nearest village, 2 miles away. We didn't have a car of our own. We couldn't afford one. But the walk took only half an hour, and I didn't mind that in the least. My father came with me. He insisted on coming. And when school ended at 4 in the afternoon, he was always there waiting to walk me home. Oh, what a good dad. And so life went on. The world I lived in consisted only of the filling station, the workshop, the caravan, the school, and of course the woods and fields and streams in the countryside around. But I was never bored. It was impossible to be bored in my father's company. He was too sparky a man for that. Plots and plans and new ideas came flying off him like sparks from a grindstone. Now, children, I'm going to go forward a few pages here, but Danny and his dad, they used to go and make kites. They'd fly kites. There's Danny and his dad. And then they'd also make, let me have a look. They'd make things like fire balloons. I'm sure you've seen those that go up into the sky. So his dad was absolutely full of ideas, and we're going to find out about some more of them. Then there was the tree house, which we built high up in the top of the big oak at the bottom of our field. And the bow and arrow, the bow a 4-foot-long ash sapling, and arrows flighted with the tail feathers of a partridge and a pheasant. We've got some pheasant. These are all pheasant feathers here. So he's making bows and arrows out of these. And stilts that made me 10 feet tall. And a boomerang that came back and fell at my feet nearly every time I threw it. And for my last birthday, there had been something that was more fun, perhaps, than all the rest. For 2 days before my birthday, I'd been forbidden to enter the workshop because my father was in there building something, working on a secret. And on the birthday morning, out came an amazing machine made from 4 bicycle wheels and several large soap boxes. But this was no ordinary whizzer. It had a brake pedal, a steering wheel, a comfortable seat, and a strong front bumper to take the shock of a crash. I called it Sopo. And just about every day I would take it up to the top of the hill in the field behind the filling station and come shooting down again at incredible speeds, riding it like a bronco over the bumps. And we've got a picture of it over here. And do you know what, children? It reminds me of something that I brought into school that you probably all have seen. I'm going to show it to you now. Let's go outside. Let's go around the back. We go around the back, round to the back. It's the back of my shed here. Over the fishing tackle, what have we got? Now, remember that's the go-kart. I'm sure some of you will have had a go on this. I remember rolling Mrs. Fawcett down this on the path from Padway. So his dad's built him his own go-kart. That's fantastic. Let's go round and read the rest of the story. Here we go. So you can see that being 8 years old and living with my father was a lot of fun. But I was impatient to be 9. I reckoned that being 9 would be even more fun than being 8. As it turned out, I was not altogether right about this. My 9th year was certainly more exciting than any of the others, but not all of it was exactly what you would call fun. And the next chapter is my father's deep, dark secret. But Daddy and his dad... Where has his dad gone? His father's disappeared.